slogans, and I want you guys just to, you can just yell it out. Yell out the company if you know that it goes with, okay? The first one is, have it your way.
Burger King.
Burger King.
No.
Right on. Okay, what about this?
McDonald's.
Alright.
Eat
What
fresh.
about, this one's a little bit harder.
Eat fresh.
It's be all that you can be.
Army.
The Army. Right on. U.S. Army. Super easy. Just do it. Nike. Alright. What about this one? Obey your parents. Obey your parents. Right. Last one. Hungry, grandma. Snickers. Okay. So
Milky Way.
all of these slogans have something in common.
Awesome.
The thing that it has in common is you, the consumer, right? It's have it your way, do what you want. If you're thirsty, get a drink right away. We live in a culture where I am the center of what I want. I am the center of my world. I can do what I want, get what I want. Just by hearing all of those slogans, that is what we're surrounded by, right? People telling us it's all about you. You can do whatever you want. Do what makes you happy. If you're hungry, get a Snickers. If you're thirsty, take a drink. Right? We have pretty much what we want when we want it. We are all about pleasing our own desires and wants. But this weekend, I want to try to shift our thinking from thinking all about ourselves to thinking about others. Okay? We're going to look at what it means to be a follower of Jesus and what it means to be a servant. So if you open up your booklet, some of you guys have already started looking in your booklets. There's a schedule, and then there's some quiet time, and then there's some verses, but you will eventually come to a thing that says session 1. So open up to session 1. So, this weekend, we're going to talk about, like I said, what it looks like to put others above ourselves. Now, this is a lot different than what our culture tells us. Just like we heard from those slogans, our culture tells us that it's all about us, all about what we want, when we want it, how we want it, right? So, thinking this way is different than the culture. The Bible tells us, and Jesus called us to be set apart, to be different than the world. Okay? But I know that for middle school and high school students, and even as an adult, sometimes that's the last thing that we want to be, is to be set apart, or to be looked at as different, or weird, or strange, right? We're all trying to fit in. Some of you guys are like, I don't want to fit in. Like, I want to be weird and different, crazy. But you're still trying to fit into a certain crowd. It's the crowd that's doing that, right? Nobody wants to be weird enough or different enough that they don't fit in with anybody, right? Okay, so I want you guys to think about, how can people look at us and know that we are different than the world? We are different than the culture and what the culture tells us to be, okay? So, we're going to be talking about what it means to be a servant this weekend. When you hear the word servant, what do you think of? Raise your hand. What do you think of right when I hear the word servant? We play this game where I play with middle school girls earlier. When I say a word, what's the first word that comes to your mind? When I say the word servant, what comes to your mind? A slave?
What?
A nanny, okay? A nanny. Tell me what else? Servant. A giver, okay? What else? It doesn't have to be positive. A maid, okay? What else? A hat, okay? A what? Huh?
A unit.
A unit, okay. There we go. Most of the time, when we think of the word servant, we have a negative view, right? We think of someone who doesn't get to do what they want to do, who's forced to do things that are most of the time unpleasant. But the You can write that in on your notes, the first line. Something that you would dread to become to something that you would desire to become. Now, I'm not saying the kind of servant that I'm going to talk about is going to be all fun and games. It's not going to be lovely all the time. But it should be something that we strive to be, that we strive to become. Okay? Now, this book right here is the Bible. And within the Bible, there are 66 separate books. Right? I don't know if you guys know this or not, but every one of these 66 books in the Bible focuses on or talks about one perspective, one characteristic, one view of Jesus. Every book in this Bible points to Jesus. Okay? And so tonight we're going to be looking at the book of Mark. And the book of Mark focuses on Jesus being a servant. So if you have your Bibles, open up to the book of Mark. The third book in the New Testament. Wait, no, it's the second book in the New Testament, Matthew, Mark. Haven't been in Matthew for a while. I'm going to kind of give you guys a little bit of background knowledge on the story that we're going to talk about. You're going to be going to Mark 10. Mark 10. So right before where we are going to pick up, Jesus is walking with a crowd of people, okay? And they're on their way to Jerusalem, and the Bible tells us that he was ahead of the crowd. So he was leading the crowd, and they were going to Jerusalem. Everybody find Mark and helping neighbors or whatever. And as they're walking, Jesus pulls aside his 12 disciples. Okay, everybody knows that Jesus had 12 disciples. He pulls them apart, away from the group, and he's talking to them. Okay? And I want you guys to think about this. As Jesus pulls his disciples apart, he begins to talk to them about the fact that he is about to die. Okay? He is going knowing that he is going to die. He is going to be beaten and bruised and hurt, and he's going to die on a cross. And he's telling his disciples, some of his closest friends, he's telling them that this is going to happen to him. Now, I want you to think about if you were in a situation and you knew that you were going to be dying soon, so you were with some of your closest friends, and you were telling them that you were going to die. I want you to think about what you would hope that circumstance would be like. Now, it would be terrible just knowing that you were going to be dying soon. Okay, that would be a super weird place to be. But think about how you would want your friends to react. Now, selfishly, I might be weird here. I don't think I am. Selfishly, I would hope that they would be sad, right? Otherwise, what kind of friend am I? Okay, my friends aren't going to be sad by me. Selfishly, I would hope that they would be like, oh no, like, I really hope you don't die, and like, we're hoping that it doesn't happen, right? I would kind of hope that the attention would be on me. That might be selfish. But it would probably be a really sad, a really serious moment with your closest group of friends. Okay? But we're going to read how the 12 disciples, how Jesus' closest followers responded when Jesus is telling them that he's going to die soon. Now, in the book of Mark, this is about the third time that Jesus is talking about this, talking about the fact that he is going to be dying soon. So, you should be in Mark 10, and we're going to start in verse 35. And it says, Then James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came over and spoke to him. Him is Jesus. Teacher, they said, we want you to do us a favor. What is your request? Jesus asked. They replied, when you sit on your glorious throne, we want to sit in places of honor next to you, one at your right and one at your left. But Jesus said to them, you don't know what you are asking. Are you able to drink from the bitter cup of suffering I am about to drink? Are you able to be baptized with the baptism of suffering I must be baptized? Oh yes, they replied, we are able. Then Jesus told them, you will indeed drink from my bitter cup and be baptized with my baptism of suffering. But I have no right to say who will sit on my right or my left. God has prepared those places for the ones He has chosen. So, real quick, James and John weren't thinking about how sad and how crazy it was that Jesus was going to be dying. Who were they thinking about? Themselves. They were hoping to get a place of honor, a place of glory with Jesus in heaven. What did they ask Jesus? Somebody raise their hand. What did they ask Jesus in this passage? Yeah, if they could sit next to Him in heaven while He's on His throne in heaven. Okay? They're thinking about themselves and what they can get out of this. Now, Jesus responds by letting them know that they don't even understand what they're asking, right? The passage, some of your Bibles might read a little bit different, but when it talks about the bitter cup of suffering, it's talking about God's wrath, God's anger, God's fury that He is going to let down on Jesus. In a little bit, I'm going to talk about the fact that Jesus was a sacrifice for us. And in being that sacrifice, He took on all of the anger, all of the fury that we deserve from God because we messed up. Right? So Jesus is saying, are you willing to take that on in order to get this place in heaven that you're asking for? They didn't understand what it took, right, to get that place of honor, to get that place of glory. So let's keep reading and see what Jesus says. So starting back up in verse 41. It says, when the other 10 disciples heard what James and John had asked, they were indignant. So Jesus called them together and said, you know that the rulers in this world lord over their people, and officials flaunt their authority over those under them. But among you, it will be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be a servant. And whoever wants to be first among you must be a slave of everyone else. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others and give His life as a ransom for many. So we're going to focus on verses 41 and 45 for just a little bit. Basically, Jesus is telling them, if you want to be a leader, if you want to be in a place of honor, a place of glory, you have to be a servant. Now, to us, that really sounds like an oxymoron, right? When we think about leaders or kings and queens, royalty, people in honor, people in glory, we don't think of the servants, right? Like before, you guys said you think of maids and workers and things like that. You don't think of people in places of honor and glory. But then he goes on to say that even himself, Jesus himself, came to this earth not to be served, but to serve. And he lived his life as an example for us and how we should live our lives. Now, what do you think Jesus means when he was saying that he came to not be served, but to serve? There it is. We're going to kind of talk about the fact that this is Jesus' picture of leadership, okay? In your notes, it says Jesus' view of a leader is not high and mighty, but humble. Okay? So in Jesus' eyes, a leader is not somebody who thinks that they're better than everyone else, that thinks that they're higher than everyone else, that thinks that they deserve more than everyone else. But it's somebody who is willing to be humble. Okay? And I think we hear the word humble a lot, but have you really stopped to think about what that really means? I didn't really, and I thought I understood, but I don't know. So I looked it up, and humble means to have a modest view of your own importance. So not viewing yourself as like lowly, like you don't deserve anything, like a piece of junk, right? Because God created you, and we know that we are not junk if God created us. But not to have this proud view of yourself, that you're better than everybody else, that because I'm a senior, I get what I want, or because I'm a leader, I can do whatever I want, right? But to be humble and to have a humble view of yourself. The second thing is Jesus' view of a leader is someone that's not who's not flaunting, but willing to suffer. I forget that it's not on the screen, so I gotta give you time. All right. So, somebody that is not flaunting their leadership isn't somebody that goes around, again, kind of like the high and mighty, but someone that's willing to work for it, someone who's willing to suffer for it. And the third one is not a tiara or a crown, but a towel and a scrub brush. So if you want a place of leadership, if you want a place of influence, God's not saying that it's bad. It's not bad to desire that. It's fine. But if you want that, you have to understand what comes with that. Right? And that's being willing to serve and to suffer for it. To serve someone is to show love to them. That's also in your notes. To serve someone is to show love to them. We are called to love and to serve everyone. Some people in our lives, it's really easy to love. Right? It's really easy to love my best friend. It's really easy for me to love my mom, because she does a lot of things for me. But it's really hard for me to love the people that are mean to me. It's really hard for me to love the people that I find out are talking about me behind my back. It's really hard for me to love the people that leave me out. I bet you guys can think of people in your lives that is hard to love. But God calls us to love everyone. I want you guys really quick to turn in your Bibles to Luke 27. It's the next book right after Mark. Luke what? Luke 27. Oh wait, hold on. Luke 6. Where is Luke 27? Luke 6:27. My bad. I'm like, wait, I'm turning to my Bible. I'm like, there isn't even a Luke 27. 6:27. And it says, but to you who are listening, I say, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, and pray for those who mistreat you. How many of you guys lately have prayed for someone who did something wrong to you? Who did something mean to you? I can speak for myself. It doesn't happen very often. That's not my first instinct. When I find out so-and-so stabbed me in the back, I'm not like, oh man, I need to pray for them. I'm like, girl, get at me. I'm going to get you, you know? Let's get on. Say that. Let's say that, right? We don't know. Okay? That's not our first instinct to pray for them. It's not our first instinct to love them, to serve them. But Jesus calls us to be different than the world, to be different than the culture. Right? Culture tells us if somebody does something to you, pay them back. But that's not what Jesus says. Jesus tells us that we are supposed to love everyone. Therefore, we are supposed to serve everyone. You got a question? All right. There you go. That's in the Bible. So we are called to love and to serve all people. That's the last blank on your paper. We are called to love and to serve all people. It's not easy. And I'm not going to stand up here and tell you that I do it perfectly, because I don't. But that's what God calls us to do. God would never call us to do something that He didn't do Himself, that He didn't model for us. Okay? He doesn't tell us to do something that He wouldn't do Himself. So God showed us The ultimate act of love. And what he did was he sent his son down here to be the sacrifice for all of us. Okay? God created the whole world. Okay? He created the world. He created everything in the world. He created you. He created me. And in the beginning, it was perfect. Can you guys imagine a perfect world? It's kind of crazy to think about. But in the beginning, it was perfect. And it was perfect until sin entered the world with Adam and Eve. Ever since then, we are all born into sin. We were born sinners. Right? All of us have messed up in our life. All of us have told a lie. We've stolen something. We've gossiped. Whatever. All of us have messed up. God is perfect. We are not. Because of that, we are separated from God. We have no way on our own to get to God. We have no way to get to heaven because we've messed up. But God loved us so much that He was willing to do something about it. Whenever something wrong is done, there's a price that has to be paid. Okay? I want you guys to think about this real quick. I just got myself a new black car. It's a pretty hot car. Okay? And if I'm driving down the road and I run into somebody's fence, somebody has to pay for that fence to get fixed. Either me, or the owner of the fence, or the insurance. There's a price that has to be paid because I did something wrong. Okay? It's the same with us in life, with sin. Because we've all done something wrong, there's a price that has to be paid. And there's nothing we can do to pay that price. So God sent His Son to be the sacrifice, to pay that price. So Jesus came down to this earth. He lived a perfect life, something that none of us are able to do. And He died on the cross. He took on that bitter cup of suffering. He took on the anger, the fury that we deserve from God. And He died on that cross for us. 3 days later, He rose from the dead. Okay? He was on this earth for a little while longer, did some ministry, and then He ascended into heaven. You don't see that every day. So what does that mean for us? What does that mean for you? What does that mean for me? Alright? So we did something wrong. There's a price that's been paid. What do I do now? How do I get to heaven? How do I get to be with God? All you have to do is confess that you are a sinner. You have to admit that you've done stuff wrong in this life. Some of you, I don't think any of you would think this, but like, I've never done anything wrong in my life. You're definitely not at the point then that you're willing to make this decision. So you have to come to the realization that you've messed up, that you've done things wrong in this life. Then you have to believe in your heart that Jesus came, lived a perfect life, paid the price for your sins. And then you have to confess with your mouth that He is Lord of your life. What does that look like? You pray to God. You tell Him the things that you've done wrong. You ask for forgiveness. You tell Him you want Him to come into your life. That you want to follow Him with your life. You want to live for Him. It's simple, but it's the biggest decision you will ever make in your life. It makes me want to cry thinking about the fact that some of you will never make this decision. And I don't get emotional very often. But I just want you guys to think about this. It's real. When you die, you're either going to heaven or you're going to hell. And I'm not trying to mess with your emotions because believe me, I'm not an emotional person. I don't know why I'm crying right now, but it's a big deal. Okay? So this could be the 100th time that you've heard this. You could be like, Marianne, I'm a senior. I've been coming to youth group since I was in 7th grade, and I hear this every month at 8 night. And that's cool. But have you made that decision? This could be the first time you've ever heard this. And you could be like, Marianne, I think you're crazy. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what this is all about, but you're crazy. And so maybe you have a lot of questions rolling on around in your mind, and I would love to sit down and talk to you about that. All the leaders here would love to sit down and to talk to you about that. But how I want to end it right now. I just want you guys to sit here and spend some time with God, okay? I really wasn't trying to make you guys cry. The floor just open, all right? I'm not trying to mess with your emotions. I'm not trying to make you make a decision that you're not ready to make. But it's a big deal. Okay? So I just want you guys to sit here for a second. I don't want you to talk to your neighbors. I just want this to be time between you and God. Okay? Maybe you made this decision in your life, and you know what? You're like, I've made this decision, I'm good. I know I got a relationship with God. Once you've made that decision, nothing can take that away from you. So you're good, you're going to heaven. But maybe you made some choices in your life that weren't so good. So you need to confess that to God and ask Him for forgiveness. And He tells us that no matter what, He will forgive us if we confess those sins to Him. Okay? Maybe you want to respond to this and you're like, I want to make that decision. I want to have a relationship with God. Not because I sat here and cried, but because it's something that I truly believe in my heart. Okay? And if that's you, and you want to just sit there and do that by yourself, that's great. It's between you and God, and I would totally love to hear about it later if that's a decision that you've made. Maybe you want to talk to a leader. Maybe you want a leader to walk through that prayer with you. The leaders are all going to be in the back few rows, kind of spread out, and you are welcome to go back and talk to a leader just one-on-one. That responding to this message. Maybe you want to make that decision. Maybe you've got some other stuff you want to work through with the leader. They're all going to be available to me back here. I'm going to go back there in a second. But right now, it's just time with you and God, right where you're sitting. So don't talk to your neighbors. When you're done, maybe you don't want to talk to a leader. That's cool. And you spend some time with God, and when you're done, just go ahead and go downstairs. Okay? There's going to be some snacks and just hang out down there, but do not go back to your cabins. Don't go outside, just go downstairs. Okay? At any point when you're done, just go downstairs. You can sit here as long as you want. You can go talk to a leader and then come back down and sit down. You can talk to a leader and then leave. You don't have to talk to a leader. Maybe you don't even want to sit here. You just go straight downstairs and all